In just a few short years, China's electric vehicle industry has risen rapidly, winning the favor of a large number of European consumers. As a result, many European automakers have seen their market share gradually eroded. Watching their home turf being steadily taken over by Chinese brands, the European Union could no longer sit still. To respond to this situation, the EU has begun joining the US-led sanctions against China. However, whether by raising tariffs on electric vehicles, launching anti-subsidy investigations, or suppressing key parts of the battery and supply chain industries in various ways, none of these actions have forced Chinese car companies to back down. And now, the EU has once again issued its harshest warning yet to China's electric vehicle industry. Either hand over all automotive technologies or be kicked out of Europe. So, the question is, which specific technologies has the EU set its sights on, and how will China respond next? If you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content. Now, let's get into today's topic. Today, new energy vehicles have already become part of our everyday lives. Whether on city streets or in residential communities, you can see them almost everywhere. Even if you don't own one yourself, chances are your friends, colleagues, or family members already do. According to statistics, global electric vehicle production in 2024 reached around 17 million units, with well-known brands such as Tesla, BYD, and Geely among them. But out of those 14.5 million vehicles, China alone accounted for about 65% of total production. This means that for every 1.4 electric vehicles sold worldwide, one is made in China. And throughout the first 10 months of this year, Chinese automakers have continued to firmly maintain this leading position. Seeing China's auto industry develop at such a high speed, the West was never going to sit idly by. As early as September 2024, the United States introduced an agreement banning the import of software and hardware related to connected vehicles from China. This includes functions like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and satellite communications, all of which allow vehicles to connect with the outside world. The US claims these technologies pose risks to national security and privacy. But the problem is, if a car doesn't even have these basic functions, it would be like setting human technology back by nearly 20 years. And that's far from the only move the US has made. In May 2024, the US reinstated the Section 301 investigation and raised tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles and related battery products. For example, tariffs on Chinese EVs jumped from 25% to 100%, while tariffs on power batteries, non-power batteries, components, natural graphite, and other key minerals were also increased by 25% in either 2024 or 2026. This directly drove up the cost of batteries and significantly raised the prices of raw materials needed for production. At the same time, the US also warned other countries that if they allowed Chinese car companies to build factories locally to bypass policy restrictions, they too might face higher tariffs. And now, the European Union is attempting to force China to hand over its core electric vehicle technologies, or risk being kicked out of the European market. So what exactly is going on? In October of this year, the EU began considering a new regulation requiring Chinese companies investing in Europe to meet certain conditions before entering key markets. These conditions include using a set proportion of EU-made goods, hiring local workers, and forming joint ventures. But most importantly, transferring technology. In fields such as new energy, automobiles, and batteries, Chinese companies are rising rapidly, putting enormous competitive pressure on Europe's manufacturing sector. The EU hopes to use policy tools to ensure it won't be marginalized during this industrial transition, while also securing a share of the future electric vehicle market. Currently, the EU is still assessing the feasibility of this regulation. For a traditional automotive powerhouse like the EU, building electric vehicles isn't really that difficult. So why is it trying to force China to hand over its EV technology? I think many people don't realize that compared to the manufacturing of the entire vehicle, the most critical part of an electric car, and the area where China holds the greatest advantage, is the power battery. What the EU really wants this time are the core power battery technologies of Chinese automakers. The power battery is the heart of an electric vehicle. It features high power output, high reliability, fast charging and discharging, and high energy density, very different from the batteries we use in everyday electronic devices. Compared with traditional fuel-powered systems, power batteries have multiple advantages: zero emissions, high efficiency, instant response, compatibility with renewable energy, and lower operating costs. Moreover, their technology evolves extremely fast, and power batteries are not only used in vehicles. They have a wide range of applications and a massive market potential. In this field, China has always been in a leading position. For example, CATL, Contemporary Amperex Technology Company, Limited, founded in 2011 and headquartered in Fujian, focuses on producing lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles and energy storage systems. As of 2025, it holds about 38% of the global power battery market share. Its products are used by many international car makers, and it continues to push forward in developing new technologies. In addition to CATL, other Chinese battery companies, such as BYD, have also performed remarkably in the global market, continuously expanding their international influence. Although cars were invented by Europeans, and brands like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Volkswagen have dominated the global auto market for over a century, their strengths mainly lie in traditional car manufacturing. As the world transitions into the new energy era, Europe has found it increasingly difficult to keep up in the power battery field. Across the entire EV power system supply chain, from raw material sourcing, intermediate processing, and battery module manufacturing, to recycling, China leads globally in multiple key stages. In both production costs and manufacturing scale, Chinese power batteries clearly outperform those made in Europe. Some analyses indicate that batteries made in China are roughly 30% cheaper than those produced in Europe. More importantly, Europe's localized battery production capacity still lags far behind. In terms of independent production, Europe not only lacks a complete industrial ecosystem, but also faces a significant labor shortage. To build a fully developed domestic power battery industry, Europe still has a long way to go. For electric vehicles, the power battery is one of the most cost-intensive, technically demanding, and supply chain complex components. The EU is fully aware that if it starts catching up only now, achieving technological parity with countries like China in the core areas of electric vehicles would be extremely difficult and time-consuming. That's why it has chosen a faster path, by trying to compel Chinese companies to hand over their technologies. But I believe no Chinese automaker would ever agree to that easily. In fact, this is not the first time the EU has tried to make China hand over its core electric vehicle technologies. As early as July 2024, the EU imposed anti-subsidy measures on Chinese-made electric vehicles. Depending on the brand and model, the additional tariffs exceeded 35% in some cases. Combined with the existing 10% import tax on regular cars, the total tax rate became quite substantial. It's hard to imagine that a union aiming to achieve zero carbon emissions by 2035 would implement a policy that essentially makes people pay more to buy electric vehicles. The EU's official explanation was that subsidies from the Chinese government for its EV industry might distort the European market. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. However, according to what I've learned, the EU had actually invited Chinese automakers to build EV factories locally, even offering local subsidies, on the condition that Chinese companies share part of their technical know-how. From imposing high tariffs on Chinese EVs, to repeatedly inviting companies to establish local manufacturing, and then to the later technology for market demands. These actions don't seem like isolated incidents, but rather a series of well-coordinated moves. Naturally, China would not yield to such coercive arrangements. From what I understand, Svolt has already halted its battery factory projects in Brandenburg and Saarland, Germany, effectively withdrawing from localized manufacturing in Europe. Leapmotor has also ended its contract manufacturing cooperation in Poland and canceled its plan to produce its second model, the B10, there. Meanwhile, Great Wall Motors has closed its European headquarters in Munich and suspended further expansion in the EU market. While this doesn't yet amount to a full-scale withdrawal, it clearly signals that Chinese automakers are scaling back their local operations. Based on the current situation, it's evident that the EU's attempt to pressure China into handing over its EV core technologies is unlikely to succeed. What's worth noting, however, is that despite facing multiple tariffs and policy barriers in Europe, Chinese automakers have still seen growth from 2024 to 2025. Data shows that Chinese brands now account for about 6% of new car registrations in the EU, double the 2.9% share in 2024. Meanwhile, sales of Chinese brand electric vehicles in Europe have grown by roughly 91%. This raises an interesting question. Is it that Europe can't do without Chinese electric vehicles? Or that Chinese EVs can't do without the European market? In my view, this is a relationship of mutual dependence. Europe relies heavily on China's supply chain for batteries and their raw materials. China dominates the upstream stages of mining, processing, and manufacturing of key materials. In 2023 alone, Europe imported 438,000 electric vehicles from China, with a total trade value of around 9.7 billion euros. At the same time, about 40% of China's EV exports went to Europe, making Europe China's largest export market for electric vehicles. However, there are also signs that China is gradually reducing its reliance on Europe, especially in exports, where the impact of tariffs and policy restrictions has become more apparent. Overall, Europe's dependence on China's critical supply chain is actually deeper than China's dependence on the European market. After all, China has already built a complete industrial chain advantage, from lithium resource extraction, large-scale battery production, and motor R&D, to intelligent driving technology. Chinese automakers now hold mastery over nearly every core technology in the EV value chain. For example, CATL holds a 37% share of the global power battery market, while BYD's self-developed IGBT chips cost 60% less than imported ones. It's precisely this mature and highly integrated industrial system that gives China efficient and stable EV production capabilities, along with a significant edge in cost control. This means China's industrial chain advantage ultimately translates into a price advantage, allowing European consumers to buy more affordable electric vehicles. Take the BYD Dolphin as an example. It sells for about 32,400 euros in Europe, while Volkswagen's ID.4 is priced at around 37,000 euros. The performance difference between the two is minimal, yet the price gap is about 13%. That's one of the main reasons many European consumers choose Chinese EVs. But whether it's high tariffs or other forms of sanctions, the ones who may end up bearing the real cost are ordinary European consumers. So, would you be willing to buy a Chinese-made electric vehicle? To not miss out on our future projects and news updates, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We will continue to provide you with more exciting and interesting content.